Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 49. Stop the excuses.
Stop it. Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Hello and welcome to Small Biz Life. If you're a returning listener, thanks so much for joining us again this week. My name's Kristen Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And we are husband and wife small business owners who are walking you through this journey through the small biz life. If you're a new listener, welcome.
And
you picked an interesting episode to join us for the first time.
When we say stop it, it's not about listening. Keep listening. Stop the excuses. And just as a fair warning, today's episode is brought to you by Ra the cat. So if there's any screams or pain that come out, it is simply her going for attention.
Yeah, so I think that this is we probably should have said the disclaimer about not stopping the episode in the intro.
Oh, well.
Because we've lost everybody now. Everybody just decided that they're done.
Well, I'll do some singing this episode then.
Oh, please don't. Please don't. So, the reason that we decided to talk about this week is that we are launching a webinar series with the same name.
Yes. And we thought what would be interesting is talking about some of these excuses that we've had in these areas. The webinar is really designed more to go over ways to help combat them. But I think today's more about what our excuses are and what are excuses that we hear a lot.
Oh yeah, no, and this
rant.
Yeah, this episode is definitely as much for me as it is for you. I know a lot of you have reached out to me and said, "Wow, this episode was so timely. It was like you were speaking to me." And I hope that some of you have this moment, but this episode's for me.
Like we like to say, we like to think we're in the battle with you on these things because we do research. We are relatively intelligent people, at least we think so. We do have skill sets, but really we're struggling with all of these things that we talk about. You know, we're not immune to anything.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and I've had people come up to me and tell me this before, but we look like we're so well put together. And
which we love when people think that.
Yeah, but we struggle with all of these things. And so, you know, especially as we've been putting together the launch for the webinar series, it's been a real struggle. And like we've seen all of these things that we're going to talk about today kind of rear their ugly head.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know you may kind of look at the episode title and say, well, I don't have excuses. There are real things in my life that are stopping me from building my business to where I want it to be.
Yes, and there are. And there are excuses.
Yes. So, I mean, the thing is, it's sometimes excuses are self-imposed.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're
real.
They're real.
Yeah.
They're external factors, and we've got to figure out how to work around them.
You know, if you are trying to start a business, you work full-time, maybe go to school full-time because you're one of those exceptionally busy people, and then you get cancer, guess what? You'll be slowed down. You won't be able to do all those things. It's an excuse, but it's completely real and legitimate.
Right. And that is exactly what happened to us 10 years ago. It was about 10 years ago, a couple weeks ago, we celebrated. We were actually at Launch Out on the 10-year anniversary of my diagnosis. And that's exactly what happened. I had just finished up my master's degree, which I was doing full time. I was working full time during tax season. I had just gotten my degree in May, and I had been sick for probably 8 months.
Yes.
And the doctors didn't really know, you know, they thought I have a history of like sinus infections and ear infections and stuff like that. So they're like, oh, you're just, it's one of those. And they kept giving me antibiotics and
over and over again.
Over and over again. And finally they found a lump on my neck. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that I had lymphoma. And everything stopped. Mm-hmm. I stopped working. Luckily I'd finished my degree at that point.
Yeah.
And my entire plan and my entire perception of what our life was going to look like changed.
Yeah.
Completely. And so a lot of these things that we're going to talk about, I still struggle with now. Mm-hmm. This journey is never perfect. If people tell you that they have it all balanced and they have it perfect, they don't.
I understand that's simply marketing.
Exactly. And so, I'm a big believer that we should be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And so you need to know that these are things that we still struggle with.
Yeah.
So the first one that I want to talk about is I want to talk about time. We have a lot going on, but at least for me, I waste a lot of time. When I talk to you guys about, how many levels we've played, I've played in Candy Crush. I actually went through all my apps today and I have beaten across all of the King games. King is the company that makes Candy Crush. 2,756 levels.
Luckily, she beats them all the first time she tries.
Yeah. And there's some that weeks I've spent on those levels. I'm all caught up on Bachelor in Paradise.
I'm not.
Yeah, no, he's not. Because typically I'll watch that like during lunch during the week. There's a lot of time. And there's time where, I've just, and we're going to go more into fear, but I'm afraid. And so I've mentioned on the show a number of times that fear rears its head in distraction for me. But I think that we all, if we can be a little bit more intentional with our time, can do more.
I think when it comes to time, you can't be perfect. That's one of those things where I think personally a job review looks pretty good if the complaints are all about time management and because that's one area I think everyone can do better in, myself included, where I've not yet reached 100 levels in King games. There are possibly countless worlds and fictional cities that wish I did because I've conquered them all. Where Fallout or Skyrim, I spend a lot more time in those kind of immersive games where I'm not blowing up bubbles, but I'm blowing up cities and super mutants and all sorts of evil things. And in a way that's kind of related to part of what I do, but it's really not when I'm playing them. I'm just doing it because I like to. And the thing we have to realize when it comes to time is ultimately it's okay. If all you want to spend is 2 hours of work a week on a hustle or a side project, you can. But understand you're only going to get 2 hours worth of results.
Well, and I think, with this launch, we didn't really have a plan for this until we came back from launch out. And so in the last 2 weeks, we've gone from having no plan to 4 webinars scheduled, running Facebook ads, getting a shopping cart up, getting course software up. And that's just, most of that we've done nights.
Yes.
So, and that's the two of us kind of saying, okay, I'm going to work on this piece. You work on that piece. And
sometimes having to come together to go, you know what? We both suck at writing copy where you have to sit down and just get something up.
But, so in probably maybe 2 hours a night, and that's not even every night.
Mm-hmm. No.
So I would say probably 2 hours a night, maybe 4 nights a week. Mm-hmm. Over the past 2 weeks, we've gone from nothing to the shell of,
something.
Of something.
Yeah.
So, I don't want you to think that this is an overwhelming process. And the thing is, like, we started with nothing.
No.
Like, we didn't even know what course software we were going to use.
We did not have SSL set up on our domain, which is pretty important if you want to have a shopping cart.
Yes, we had to do that. We had to figure out what shopping cart we were going to use. We had to figure out, how Facebook ads worked. And then it was funny because the night that I went to schedule our Facebook ads, it wasn't working. And so I had to do, so we were delayed with that.
And the thing is, in reality, it's not a great plan to go into a marketing campaign with untested ads. Typically, what you'd want to do would be to test out the ads ahead of time, bits and pieces, a different thing that you're converting over to, but to see if the content works well, to see if the ad is catching people's attention. And we didn't do any of that because, well, we didn't have the time, but the opportunity made the time because it's when it needed to happen.
And, the thing is, like, even during the day, like, I would work in little 15-minute bits. So I'd be like, what can I do in 15 minutes just to kind of move this forward a little bit? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that was, all right, let me do research on effective Facebook ads, or let me look through the stock photos we have and kind of see what I like that would help with that. Or let me draft a couple sentences of, webinar copy.
Yep.
So, and I know that we have, some listeners that have, chronic pain issues, chronic health issues. If you can get 15 to 30 minutes of productive time, and even if you have to break that up into 2 15-minute segments, or, you feel better later in the afternoon, then schedule it then.
Yeah. But
those little chunks of time, if you have a task list put together, you can really advance things.
I think it's very important too. The tighter your time is, the smaller your tasks need to be. And we had a couple of tasks that we didn't break down well, which kind of came to bite us in our original sprint that we did to get to where we are now. It came to bite us because we had stuff broken down in that week pretty good, but then stuff like Facebook ads go down and certain things happen. I'm waiting for the certificate to actually be put up so I can really make sure things are connected. We had issues creating a PayPal account. We had weird issues along the way, but the stuff we had beyond it was not thought out more than big picture bullet items. And so when we got to those breaking points, we ran out of relevant tasks that needed to be dealt with sooner.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. I think if you break your tasks up into small pieces, not only does that help you with the time management piece, but I also think it helps fight fear.
Well, because you feel like you're crushing it too. It's like, I got 35 things done today.
Woohoo!
And maybe you could have got 75 things done because they're all in really small increments, but so what? You crushed 35 things that you needed to get done. So a lot of it is knowing what are the priorities to get you to where you need to be next, and knowing a lot of information about that. And maybe those 15 minutes are, I need to find out more information about shopping carts, or I need to find out more information about video hosting or audio hosting, or one of the many things that you need to know about in today's modern technology landscape.
Right. And so the first webinar that we're doing is actually going to be on time budgeting.
Yeah.
Because this is something that we started doing because, okay, so if you've listened to the show before, you may know that we've paid off over $200,000 worth of consumer debt. And we did that with a zero-based budget. We followed the Dave Ramsey plan with the zero-based budget. And so when our schedule started to get kind of out of control with 2 podcasts and side businesses and writing and websites and jobs, and we kind of thought, well, what if you applied that concept to time, that you did a zero-based time budget?
And then Kristen put one together and we used it. And we're like, why have we not thought of this earlier? We have Getting Things Done software, Nosby, which we love. And we use master schedules because these are the things people are telling you to do. You need a task list like Nosby to get things done. You need a master schedule, so you're blocking out all of your time. But the big question people always have, and is very similar to money, is how much do I really have to spend on this?
Right. And I think that's the thing, because I've used a master schedule for a long time. And being able to sit down and budget those 168 hours and then do the master schedule made me much more productive.
Because you know, it's like, wait, how come I have, in a way, it's kind of like an accounting idea of balancing your books too. It's like, I thought I have 12 hours of time, but as I'm looking at my schedule, I don't. What am I either forgetting to schedule? What am I forgetting to budget for? Because people, if you've ever done a budget, you know that it's easy, especially the newer you are at doing it, you're going to miss stuff. Exactly.
So if you go to smallbizlife.com/webinar, you can sign up for the whole series. But the first one is on time budgeting.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to take you through how to do one, how to translate that into a master schedule. We're going to talk about tasks. We're going to talk about using Nosby to help put your task list together.
Sprints.
Yeah, we're going to talk about sprints. So, a lot of different techniques for how to budget your time and manage your time more wisely.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the first webinar that we're doing. Now, the second item that I want to talk about a little bit is money. And this is like my wheelhouse, right? And people think that you need a tremendous amount of money to start a business.
Nope.
Now, if you want to open up like a franchise of, like a Subway or a frozen yogurt place, and yes, you need a tremendous amount of money to do that.
If you want to create a new retail store that could beat against Walmart and Target, you're going to need lots of capital.
Right. But for most small businesses, you can start your business very inexpensively. You already have a lot of the tools that you need. And depending on what you want to do, you can probably start up for $100.
Yeah. Especially a lot of people today are starting up online service businesses, online content businesses. I mean, $100 to set up, definitely under $50 a month, to maintain all of the stuff that you need.
And I think that's really crucial, is that you have to think about, what do I really need? When we started our first business, we thought that every want was a need. And so we spent a tremendous amount of money to get that business off the ground.
And way too much time learning tools, way too much time, falling into sort of an education trap, right? So it's the idea that you spend so much time focusing on preparing for the job that you never quite get to the job. And by the time we started making money at that, that's when Kristen was diagnosed with cancer, ended up killing the business, and it was starting to make money. But the thing was, at that point, stability was more important than starting to make money.
Right. So when we started my accounting firm, we were much more lean. We had learned a lot of lessons.
And plus, we had a lot of cool stuff already.
That's true. But we were able to start that business. I think we spent maybe $70.
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
the license for the accounting software was the most expensive thing up front.
Yeah. So, the thing that we did is, we formed the business. I used the computer I already had, and we did a lot of free networking. And this was before, Facebook wasn't really big at this point. And so a lot of it was just face-to-face networking, going out. I was bald at the time because all my hair had fallen out from chemo. And so, it was really hard. I was very pale, and I was puffy, and I was bald, and, but I had this hat that I wore everywhere, and that really helped. That was like my security blanket when I went networking. But that was the thing. We didn't really have the money to spend.
Yeah.
And so...
And we had built up $200,000 of consumer debt. Well, we were still getting up to that point, but we were well on our way at that point.
Right. So, I had to use, kind of what we had on hand.
Yeah.
And you can do that. You can start your business with very little money. You know, you could probably have a tag sale next weekend and raise more than enough money in order to start your business.
Like I said, it's also dependent too, where a limitation might become like, well, I'm not starting a hedge fund because I don't have the capital to do that. So it might limit the type of business you can start, but you can start a business and you can start working at it. You know, I think the trap comes once you start making money is when you start bootstrapping a business, all of the money that comes in has to go right back into the business, over and over again. And in general, most money a business makes is going to be reinvested in itself, either in the people or in the equipment anyway. You know, very little profit really gets distributed to the owners. That's just the way it is.
You know, but I also think too that if you have a plan in place for what you want to do, mm-hmm. I mean, I'll be completely honest, because we have a lot of tools that we talk about. I think we spend about $100 a month on tools mm-hmm. between the podcast hosting for the 2 shows, email, websites. So even now, you know, we run these businesses pretty lean.
And it's been, once again, same thing, money with time. It's being intentional with it. You know, we could spend a heck of a lot more.
Oh, yes.
You know, I could have WordPress specialized hosting online. You know, there's all kinds of nifty things I want. I could have 5 more laptops right now. Trust me, 1 for each task. But we don't do that. And don't get us wrong. We have a couple good computers that we use at home. We have a couple we travel with. So we have lots of technology. A lot of it's one-time purchases. And a lot of times when we look for stuff, it's about, is it a monthly pay? Is it a one-time pay? Can we reuse this in multiple areas? A lot of times when we buy tools for a website, if it's a one-time purchase, we say, well, we know we have at least 2 brands, and there are other things that go through our minds all of the time. So can we use this on other websites? You know, and a lot of that stuff helps define our decision making as we go through.
Right. So the second webinar that we're doing in week 2 is going to be about bootstrapping your business.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk all about different tools, kind of help you develop a priority list. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's really important when you're on a limited budget, is to figure out which tools are going to give you the most traction. Mm-hmm. You know, like I gotta say, like I love Grum. Okay, Grum is an Instagram scheduling tool from your computer. And I've been able to grow our social media presence with that mm-hmm. on Instagram. We've seen an increase in downloads from the show mm-hmm. from it. I'm picking up a lot of new followers. I'm getting really good interaction on Instagram. And we ended up buying that through AppSumo.
Yeah.
Which
we're both addicted to AppSumo.
Which is a great site if you're bootstrapping your business and you're looking for new tools.
You'll get all kinds of wonderful things. Like, let's say I have access to one website that is just marketing images and all kinds of stuff. There's hundreds of thousands of these images I can use royalty free. And I have it there. It was really cheap. So we bought it, but we had lifetime access to it.
Right. So I think for Grum is normally like $10 a month. And I think we got it for $29 lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those are the kinds of things that I look for to say, all right, if I'm going to spend $30 on this, and I would pay the $10 a month for it, you know, I'm glad I got it for $30, yeah. But those are the kinds of things I look at and I say, okay, I want to move more into Instagram because I know mm-hmm. that my avatar is there.
Yeah. And if you're talking about spending a one-time cash layout for under $50, that will save you time for years. You know, to me, saving time is more important than saving money. But especially if I can do a limited outlay of cash, and it's something that we are going to reutilize for years.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, you know, that's kind of the thing is, you know, we kind of started with a lot of like monthly pay mm-hmm. tools. And then we've kind of evolved as we've made more money to say, okay, you know, I really want Webinar Jam for our webinars. So, you know, that's going to be $500 a year.
Saves a lot of automation time, saves a lot of time setting up webinars.
So that's the thing. But, for most people, like laying out $500 at one time when you're first starting up, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
But we built to that point.
Yes.
So we said, okay, what is it? What are we going to have to do to be able to save up the money to get this tool?
At this point, we make some money online. It all gets reinvested back into buying equipment for the studio, for buying bits and pieces of things we need. Plus, we do subsidize from our incomes from our day jobs back into the business as well, too.
Well, and the thing is, like, at this point, even most of the profit from the accounting firm goes into the other portions of the business so that we can test other things, so that we can, buy some other tools that, will help enhance the other parts. And then it's funny, though, because like this podcast has helped feed into the growth of the accounting firm.
Yep.
So making those investments has helped increase the profitability of the accounting firm.
Yeah.
So it's figuring out which tools are going to give you the most traction. And if you go to smallbizlife.com/webinar, sign up for that series, week 2 is going to be all about bootstrapping.
Yeah.
Okay. So another thing that I run into a lot is I don't have the skills to do this. I don't know how to build a website. I don't know how to build a social media presence. I don't know how to build a shopping cart and record courses. Neither did I.
Nope.
Probably, well, let's see, the shopping cart portion and the webinar portion I learned last year when I started playing with that. Facebook ads I started playing with probably about 6 months ago with one of my other sites. I didn't know how to do an email list, 4 years ago.
Nope.
8 years ago, I didn't know how to blog.
And
it's learning, and it's being in communities where you can ask people how things work.
Yeah. Or even it's like where I had information technology, like the ability to create websites before this. The type of websites I created were internal business process websites. They weren't external customer serving websites. Hugely different in how you build them and how you get people to interact with them.
But you can't be afraid to learn new things, but you also can't get trapped in the learning cycle.
And the most important thing you can learn is how to Google and use YouTube effectively. So if you're trying to build a website, you always throw the year in first, 2016. If you're using something like WordPress, then you put that in next. And then you say what you need. And you'll be shocked at all the stuff that you can find. If it's a plugin to do something to make your WordPress better, you add in the word plugin. It's learning to Google more effectively will actually save you the most time and money because you could spend, a college education to learn how to do computer programming and still not be any closer to building a site in WordPress that will help you run a business effectively.
Well, and I think that that's kind of one thing that we look at when we buy tools is we look at how much is out there about using that tool or building in that tool. And that's why WordPress is so popular is because there's tons of free information out there on WordPress. Finding the right information is sometimes a bit challenging, but it's out there.
And in areas where you truly struggle, let's say maybe you're not great at building an effective website. The question is, how long would it save you, or how long would it take you to save up to utilize the skills of someone who you think is good at doing it? You look at their portfolio. You ask them questions about your industry, and how they can be effective in your industry. You do these kinds of things. You build a budget and say, well, okay, it might take me 6 months to get there, but at that 6 month point, I should have enough saved and I can speed it up with maybe selling stuff that I no longer need, or maybe getting extra ad hoc work here or there where you're putting more money into it. But if you go out and talk to people who can effectively do the things for you, talk to your friends about who they've used, talk to your friends about who they respect to get good referrals of people to do business with. You do all of this kind of stuff, you can put together a plan from how you get from a bad website that does what you need it to do, but just barely, to a highly effective website. And at this point, for most online needs, especially if there isn't direct e-commerce happening through the site, you probably shouldn't be paying over $2,000 for a WordPress site, and a really visually stunning, effective one.
Yeah. And I think too, there are a lot of pre-built themes that you can buy. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny because I think people forget that step. People go from free theme to custom built site. Mm-hmm. And there's a step in the middle. Which is what the
WordPress designers are probably doing. They're taking a premium theme and making it work for you.
And so, Michael Hyatt has premium themes.
Jeff Goins
has premium themes. There are a ton of different themes out there depending on what your business is, mm-hmm. and who your avatar is. So Michael Hyatt's is really designed for speakers and bloggers. Jeff Goins is for writers. Mm-hmm. There are themes out there if you have a podcast, yep. that there are actually themes that you can buy for that. Just kind of look out there and see what you can find. And maybe that $50 or $100 theme is what gets you through while you're saving up the money, yep. to have your logo done in a branded, yep. site.
Or there are tools too, like Thrive themes that we use, which is a lot more than themes, but you can get themes from them, and it's easier to use if you use one of their basic themes. But it's like this tool where a lot of people, they have this idea of how they want to look in WordPress, and then when they're using the editor, they struggle and they can't quite get to look the way they want to. Well, in Thrive themes, you can actually visually lay stuff out. And so for people who can't quite get their fingers on making it look the way they want to when it's published, they can use a tool like this to help them just visually do it in front of themselves and then go, oh, wow, this is awesome, and utilize that.
But here's the thing, don't get caught up in thinking that you need to know everything before you start. No. The approach that we take now is we figure out what is the next step in the process, mm-hmm. and learn that thing. Yeah. And then do it. Mm-hmm. And then move on. So I think as you've been building out the course side of things on the software side, yeah. it was, okay, we're using WP Course Press.
Yes.
And so you went through and you were building that up until it said, oh, you need a shopping cart. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's learn how to use WooCommerce now.
Because I knew, and the reason I picked WooCommerce was I knew that there was integration between the two, which would save me from doing that part of it. I didn't want to reinvent that wheel.
Right. So even, when you're looking at who should you use for your email list, mm-hmm. look to see, does it integrate with the other pieces of mm-hmm. your business? Because if you've got to manually put in code to make it work, mm-hmm. that's going to be a pain. Yep. So, look at the natural integrations that already exist, mm-hmm. and look at those products.
And look at the products and figure out which one best fits the need that you have. And the thing is to stay focused on the need that you have, because later on, it is possible a lot of times to move from product to product. One of the things I look at is to make sure I'm not trapped into a vendor if I start using them. We've used multiple email services. We're actually in the middle of changing over another one. So that's one thing to keep in mind as you're picking them as well too.
Yeah, I think that's important is, it may save us some money to get into a long-term contract, but typically as our business is growing, we're changing the tools that we're using.
We're learning what we need more of, and we're finding tools to fulfill our needs.
Exactly. So, that's one thing. And it helps too if you're trying to bootstrap your business. not to get into those long-term contracts. Yep. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about today, one of my favorite topics.
I'm a little bit afraid. What is it?
Because you're afraid. That's right. It's fear. Because I think I struggle with this a lot. Mm-hmm. This is something that, especially the last 2 weeks, I have not gotten a whole lot of sleep because fear. Mm-hmm. Right? So we're really going out on a ledge, and it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, we're putting ourselves out there. We're doing this webinar series. We're running ads for it. We're running a course in September. And this is outside my comfort zone, which is really funny because I teach, for a living.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of the things I do. And even in my firm, I'm teaching small business owners through the podcast. You know, we're helping teach you guys. And it's just scary.
Yeah.
And so, for me, we were talking about time. There are a lot of times that, my fear comes out and says, oh, you're too tired. Or, oh, your allergies are bothering you, or you're stressed out about something. Let's just go sit on the couch for a little bit and play a couple levels of candy something.
And a lot of times you talk about time, money, and skills. A lot of times those are just fears masking themselves. Sometimes they're legitimate concerns, and sometimes they're just straight out irrational fears.
It's fear trying to shut you down. And so that's why putting together the time budget, will help eradicate some of your fears. Having a detailed task list will help eradicate some of your fears. Having a budget in place and knowing what you should spend monthly on your business will help eradicate some of those fears.
I've heard people say that they think we overplan things. And that could be a crutch that you fall into where you overplan things. We don't. There's this idea in horror fiction, this idea that a monster less described is more scary to more people. If there's a book and there's take Stephen King's It, they're very vague on what it looks like. I mean, even the name is It. What is it? Your brain gets to fill in the details. So the idea is the problem when you transfer fiction like It into a miniseries, which was actually okay, it loses some of its terror for some of its people because you now put a face to it. You now give extreme detail to this horrific thing that lives under the bed or in the sewers. And when you shine light on stuff, it helps take the fear away because it makes it more real.
Yeah, no, and I really like that analogy because that's the thing is when we have a Kaizen board up on the whiteboard and being able to say, okay, this is done. Okay, this is in progress. And I think we probably should have put more detail into it, but it was really cool to see everything defined that these are all the things we needed to do.
And you also see too how things start getting knocked off of the list.
Yeah, because I think when we first started, we're like, okay, so we're going to release a course in September and we're going to do some webinars to lead into it. And that sounds big and scary. But then as we started defining the pieces and saying, okay, we need to do this, 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 and this, it wasn't so bad.
No.
And even when, when I started putting together the Facebook ads, I said, okay, we need a graphic, we need a headline, we need text under the headline, we need post content. And when you started breaking it down, okay, I need these 4 things. Let me go look at some graphics. Let me think about some headlines. It became a lot less scary.
Yeah.
And I was able to punch them out fairly quickly after I had procrastinated about it for probably a week. At the last minute, I got them put together and I was like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad. So, defining your project and setting up small tasks, setting up a time budget, setting up, this is the next thing I need to learn in order to be able to complete a task will help you punch fear.
That's right. And if fear is one of your big issues, you're done planning your project to where you can look through a list of tasks for it. And you might think this task list is big. And there's nothing you can do to alleviate that, because if you break it down this way, it's going to be bigger than it would normally be. But when you go through and look at the individual items, there should be nothing that you are uncertain about. There should be nothing that you are afraid of because it's so vague and big, like, oh my goodness, how do I put up a e-commerce site? I don't know how to do that. Maybe you don't, but trust me, like if you're using a tool like WordPress, between that and YouTube, you can get it set up pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, the last thing that I want to address, I think a lot of us create crutches in our life. And we start to blame external things for us not being able to start our business or grow our business. Things like, well, my family's stressing me out, or my family is putting responsibilities on me. And if I didn't have those, then I could do this. I think a lot of times those things go back to boundaries. And I think it goes back to validating our fears. I've said that my fears manifest in distraction. I think a lot of people's fears manifest in distraction in a different way. Distraction of family, distraction of stress. And we allow those things to shut down our business and shut down our motivation to work on our business. We've always said in this show, no is a very powerful word. And sometimes you have to, and this is a lot easier when you have a time budget and a master schedule. Sometimes you have to say, no, I'm sorry, I have an appointment at that time. Is there some other time I could help you after business hours or on the weekend? But I can't do it on Monday morning.
Yeah. And also when you're working through your fears, sit there and ask yourself, this is a fear I know I have. Look for your crutches, because sometimes we unfairly put them onto other people. And we're like, well, that person's, they don't think I can make it. That's why they're distracting me. And really, I'm just pushing off my anxiety onto them, trying to use that as I'm self-validating through someone else. Find out where those crutches are if you have crutches like those, because you might find out that the people you think that are holding you back can and will be bigger supporters figures than you know. It's your own fears and crutches being hoisted onto them because of their convenience in time and their importance to us.
Well, and I think too that when we don't set boundaries around the business portion of our lives, we're saying my business does not have enough value to me. I don't have enough confidence in myself as a business person to say, you know what, this is important.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't do that if you worked for somebody else.
If that was your child that you had to take to the doctor's office, would you give that up to go have lunch with a friend?
You wouldn't tell your employer, oh, I'm sorry, I can't come in today because I need to help somebody in my family paint their house. You wouldn't do that.
No.
So why do you do that with your business? Why do you take time away from your business when you probably know you shouldn't, but you do it anyways? It's probably because you don't have confidence in yourself and your business to make this work, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? You're like, well, of course it's not going to work because look, I've been doing all this stuff and I've been working on it for, 3 years and it's not doing anything. So I should stop. Well, how many times are you not making the business a priority over things that you could do either in the evening or on the weekend so that you can preserve your productive time to work on your business? And I'm not saying that you should never have fun. I'm not saying that you should never help people. But think about every time you say yes to something, ask yourself, if I worked for someone else, would I say yes to this and not go to work because of this thing?
And realize no matter how good your idea is, no matter how much you think you deserve it, if you put 2 hours of work into something a week, there's no reasonable expectation to ever get more than 2 hours worth of results back.
Right, exactly. You know, but if you need to start somewhere, 2 hours is better than nothing.
That's right.
You know, so that's the thing, is like, you've got to recognize where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you so much for listening this week. If you're interested in checking out the webinar series, you can go to smallbizlife.com/webinar. We're doing 4 weeks of webinars. One is going to be on time budgeting. The second one is on bootstrapping your business. The third one is going to be on saving time and money through tracking your expenses. And the fourth one is on fear.
And if you do not have the time right now to do it, it will be available, but it will only be available afterwards as a modest fee for a course. This won't be an overwhelming expensive course, but we're only doing it free this one time.
Right. So in order to get it free, you have to be there live. You can sign up at any point that we're running the webinar. So you might miss the first one, but you can still see the next 3. But this is something that we're actually recording as a paid course that we've decided, well, hey, let's have some people live with us.
And to thank them for helping us for doing this live, they can get it for free. But after that, it's for payment only.
Right. So, you know, we'd love to have you with us for that. Go to smallbizlife.com/webinar and go check that out. And we'll see you guys next week.
This was Small Biz Life.